So the challenge is when we receive this, so here's another A, actual assault. We often jump immediately to thinking about the consequences. So we run immediately from A to C. And we let this sense of figuring out what to do become our response to the assault. What should be the consequences of this? And we begin to have thoughts, and we begin to have emotions, and we begin to have feelings. I attended Dave Wells's mother's funeral last Saturday in Edmonton. Dave Wells is our general superintendent. While I am there, the funeral is in the church that was my home church during Bible college. It was my home church for 3.5 years. The lead pastor there, Reverend Al Forsyth, passed away a number of years ago. His wife is still there. She's in her late 80s. I see her, and during the lunchtime, I go up to this sweet and wonderful lady, and I say, Sister Forsyth, so good to see you. I'm John Drisner. And I just want to thank you for everything you poured into my life. And in a very real sense, those were deeply formative years. I saw things in that church that have marked my ministry ever since. So I say, thank you, Sister Forsyth. And she says to me, John, everybody says this, John, I never would have recognized you. And I say, yeah, a lot of people say that. And she says, well, so thank you so much for coming up and introducing yourself. It's amazing that you're so much better looking now. So I forgive her, I move on. Thank you, Sister Forsyth. You still got it in you. You got this ability to make me feel special. And I decide I want a picture with this lady before I leave. So 10 minutes I go up to her, I find a young lady who's standing with her. And I say, would you take a picture of me and Sister Forsyth together? She comes in close, she lets me put my arm around her shoulder. We stand real nice, we take our picture together. After the picture's taken, she looks at me and says, who are you? And I say, I'm John Drisner. And she says, oh, good to see you. I haven't seen you for a long time. How long has it been? And I could take that and I could jump to, in my thinking, to wow, this woman never loved me, never cared about me, can't remember me, never did know me. And get in a real huff about it. Never was appreciated around there. Never was important. They loved Dave Wells more than they loved me. I bet you they know Dave Wells. Direct report. The person who's your direct report comes up to you and has a conversation, and you leave the conversation, the A moment, and your direct report has said you need to do better, and you leave thinking, I'm a failure, I'll never make it in life. And that becomes a consequence to you. I gotta quit, I gotta resign. Nobody loves me, Dad was right. I'll never amount to anything. Adolescent behavior. Girls, you probably understand this, but as adolescents, when a gal broke up with us, it was an apocalyptic event. like we were really convinced the world was about to end. There was no life tomorrow. There's nothing worth getting up for anymore. An action, we jump to the consequence of, I'll never find anybody to marry me. Nobody loves me. Everybody thinks I'm ugly.
Never happened to me.
So it's really easy to jump to consequences. The problem is we missed a letter. And when we miss the letter, we end up in places we're not supposed to be. And between A and C has to be our beliefs. And what do you really believe? What have you built your life? What kind of character have you poured into your life? What kind of things do you go back when the assaults hit you? So you're not responding to the assault, you're responding to your beliefs. And your belief system should be built on the God who loves you and the God who cares for you. And when you're being assaulted, it is really, really good to understand this and have this built into you, where there's an understanding, if God be for you, who can be against you? And they can assault me, and they can assault my wife for 7 hours. But I know that God has called me into ministry, and I know I'm doing my best to serve with integrity and humility. They can say what they want to say, but if God is for me, who can be against me? And so one of the board members after that night takes me out for lunch 2 days later. And he says, I should have spoken up on Sunday night. Yeah, you probably should have. It would have been appreciated. But he says, what are you going to do? And this was my response. I said, I'm going to keep serving Jesus. And God, I'll leave the results with God. And I kept serving Jesus, and it's a long story. I left the results with God. You've got to know what you believe. You've got to know what you're building your life on. Your beliefs matter. Do you believe when things happen that the God you serve actually works all things together for good to them that love Him? Or are you going to run off and quit because something went wrong? There was this action that was so negative and so disturbing. Are you going to let the action control you, or are you going to know your alphabet and run to the B's first? Run to your belief system. A belief that is rooted in the care and compassion and the Word of God and God's ability to take all kinds of circumstances and situations and work them together for good. So this is a significant difference between a mature person and an immature person, a person who has had character, infrastructure built into their lives. People who haven't let God build character into their life, whenever they get into this aggravating assault situation, they immediately are running here. Something terrible is going to happen, and their mind goes wild. But a mature person doesn't let the winds and waves disturb them. They're not tossed around. They are rooted in, they go to B next. They go to a belief system that allows them to keep on going through the storms of life. So, people of character have learned their alphabet. And before C is B. And make sure, as leaders, we go to our B's. Because if it hasn't happened to you in the last 2 years, there's a high likelihood in the next 2 years somebody's going to say something to you that isn't real kind. And are you going to let the unkindness of others determine your destiny? Or are you going to let the God who's for you and has called you and loves you to death, and I use that intentionally, loves you to death, be the one who determines your future?